Hello, everyone. Mike is about to tell us something. Wait,
No,
what
no,
happened?
no. First of all, your camera is out, or did you shut it off?
I don't know what I did. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I did something messed up. Sorry.
You're a
What the heck?
pulsating orb right now.
Yeah, I'm a pulsating orb. I like myself as a pulsating orb, actually. Hold on. Here we go.
That sounds pornographic. There you go.
Seriously, Mike?
No, it's just
Yeah.
Russ, start us off, please.
So let's talk about the
My wife
saga.
is working near me today, Mike. Please.
Yeah.
just for this day.
Let's talk about the saga of Ben Roethlisberger,
Oh,
who is clearly under the gun here
All right.
after I don't know what his 17th year in the league. Like they knew Steelers knew what they were risking this year with Ben Roethlisberger and decided, okay, we're not really going to have any good backup quarterbacks because he's making all the money and we hope that he has one more good year in him. And it's interesting now that like he did a press conference today and he says, yeah, I've got to do this better and I've got to learn more about that. And, 17 years later, there's not that much he's going to learn. It's just what he used to do doesn't work because he can't scramble out of the pocket like he used to. His arm isn't as good as he used to be. And so they have to completely change the offense if they want him in it because he can't really throw the ball beyond 50 yards.
Well,
that's obvious. And then when he starts throwing long, the accuracy is not there. So you just I kind of wonder what it is now that they want out of the guy. But then there's these other media people, and this is where everybody else could chime in, that are just like, well, you just got to dump Ben Roethlisberger and go get, whoever, Cam Newton, go name the cast-off quarterback thing. But the Steelers aren't going to do that.
It feels like he's been playing forever. I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Though, it's kind of sad that, the kind of the romance of the game. I think back to, when we were kids, Russ, you and I, and, you had quarterbacks, Billy Kilmer, Stabler, the guys that had, a little bit of a belly and, there was room for those guys, just smart.
Dan Pastorini.
Yeah. Sonny Jurgensen to a lesser.
Oh, yeah. Jurgensen played forever.
Yeah. And those guys, and, they could just sort of use their savvy and everything. But the game is so different now. There's really less room for those guys. You got to have the tools to compete in today's game. And once you lose those tools, boy, there's the room. Or, George Blanda played into his 40s. Guys. So
the miracle is that you remember Pittsburgh was 11-0 last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they come out in week 1 and beat Buffalo in Buffalo. And since then, Buffalo's played like the Bills played last year. And, it was basically the Pittsburgh defense had the entire year to plan for the Bills' offensive attack, and they shut them down. And Roethlisberger was terrible in the first 3 quarters and got, I think, 1 touchdown, and they were able to win. So it's not impossible for that team to win, but he's so limited. His arm is so bad. He's less mobile than an offensive lineman. I don't know how much longer they can go with him, but the problem is, Russ, they have no option. Dwayne Haskins is the backup, so they really have no option other than to stick with this dinosaur until.
Well, no, they can go get Cam Newton if they want to just do that. They do have some options.
Well, nobody will pick him up because he didn't get COVID, didn't get the vaccine.
Again, but that's an option. To say they have no options isn't fair because that's one of the options. Like they have options. They could go trade for another quarterback if they want to. It's just that will they do that, or will they just let Roethlisberger play this season out and get what they get? Because like you said, last year he did get those wins, but then they did die after that. It's just they kept losing after that. And so maybe that was his last run. We don't know. But
a couple things I have to bring up. Of course, everybody in the chat is giving me their condolences over the Yankees losing, and I know that you didn't because you reveled in the Yankees losing.
I did.
At least they made the playoffs, unlike the Mets.
Whatever. Now they have a third Halloween sign on the stadium.
But yes, I was going to find the picture of Dollar General for Citi Field. But Kev, the ultimate embarrassment last night, I put it in our group text, was John Sterling calling. No, Giancarlo Stanton hit a long fly ball that the cameraman for ESPN panned up thinking it was going to be a home run. It was this majestic high fly ball, and it hit the top of the green monster, bounced back into the field. First of all, Stanton Cadillac'd it around first base and got a single out of it. But he's not the first guy who's hit one off the green monster and gotten a single.
No,
but he looked at it majestic, like it was this, it was going out on a Lansdowne Street, and it bounced in. But John Sterling, who's watching the game from New York on a monitor, goes into, it is high, it is far, it is gone, it's a Stantonian blast, the whole spiel. And Stanton's standing on first base, and by the time he's halfway through the spiel, ESPN is showing him standing on first, and Sterling just keeps going. It was terrible. It was so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to have that when you're dealing with broadcasters, calling the game from studios and not, live. So
my only issue is, Kevin, it's like, it's okay if someone's calling from a monitor. Like we're used to that now. But the problem was he committed to the Stantonian thing as the fielder was fielding the ball off the wall. He could have just stopped at the point where he called the home run and noticed, oh, look, the guy fielded the ball. Something else has happened here. And, reversed course on that, but he didn't.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that may have more to do with his age.
Yes.
He was discommitted, unfortunately. And, if you want to keep those legends around, you have to accept the fact that they're going to have those kind of moments.
For sure.
We talked about this on the last show, and I can't remember if it was either you, Mike, or Russ brought it up, that they are delaying. Like the people that know what they're doing are kind of just holding in a pause form. And, that requires some skill too, to do it in such a way that it doesn't seem forced. But I bet that had a little bit more to do with age than it did with,
unfortunately.
Now, I have to present a scenario to you and get your opinion on what you would do. I purchased a coffee table from a furniture store that is 3 blocks away from my house.
Okay.
Put a down payment on it. It was supposed to be, you get it in 6 months because, obviously the supply chain situation right now, everything has delayed it. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, 2 weeks after I order it, they say, it's here, it's ready. Oh, great. I go and pay the balance. You go to the back of the store where the loading dock is. They bring out this big, it's not like a ridiculous, they showed the coffee table in the display and then in the store. It's not ridiculously big, but because the box is so much bigger than the actual coffee table, it does not fit into the back of my Honda HRV. So, okay. I ask how much to deliver it. Remember, it's 3 blocks away.
I'm going to say $200.
Ack?
$4,500.
Oh, come on.
I would say it's $100, but I would do, that happens all the time when you say to the guy, the box is making it too big. Can we just take it out of the box? And they'll do that for you.
Well, they wouldn't, because I suggested that, and they said, "Well, we'll strap it on the top of your car, but I don't want to scratch the top of my vehicle."
I like that look, yeah.
So it was $80.
Oh,
I am not going to pay them $80 to drive it 3 blocks.
That's like your $2 for paying for a Coke.
Okay,
pay $80.
Hold on, Russ. Let me finish.
I'm sure there's more.
This is what my solution is going to be.
Yeah.
After the show, I am taking the dolly that I have from my house, walking the 3 blocks, getting the box, and walking it back to my house.
Nice.
Screw them.
I'll tell you a story. This happened.
You're going to hit a rut in the curb, and it's going to fall. That's all I'm going to tell you.
This happened 38 years ago.
Okay.
We had a furniture right around the block, a furniture store right around the block. And my wife and I purchased this large, long bench. And rather than pay the fee to have it delivered, we walked down there and, we had kids and we had a kid in a stroller. and we just carried it all the way home, all the way down the street and everything else. And
just one end on the stroller and carry the other end. Yeah.
Yeah, one hand on the stroller, one hand on the big giant bench, and we get home. So I'm with you on that plan. That's a good plan.
Yeah,
no, it's not a good plan. I hope somebody videos Mike, because I'm telling you, he's going to hit a rut in the sidewalk, and then he's going to wish he paid the $80.
And it's going to break the dolly, and I'm going to have to stack it.
I am surprised they wouldn't take it out of the box, though. Normally, if you take it out of the store and then just take the thing off, they'll actually help you. I mean, it's still on you, but
I think they, obviously they get paid for they get probably a portion of it for shipping. So they were probably like, oh, just go with no, it's $80. I'm sorry, I'm not paying $80 for 3. That's $26 a block. No, thank you.
Yeah.
See, I pay with my back. I'll pay someone $80 to just bring it into the
Exactly.
freaking house from the curb.
Exactly.
Just bring it into the house. I'm just like my back is so bad.
For
I'm like,
$80, they'll say, "Where do you want it?"
right. I'll just
crap
put it
with
here,
them.
put it there. They'll take it apart. Whatever.
Right.
There's got to be a way. There's got to be a way. Anyways, move on.
Well, the funny part about my story was, the reason why. I mean, we had just bought our first house, okay, and we really stretched, and I wondered whether we were going to be able to afford the payments. It was $38,500 when I bought that house, and our payments were $400. Like it's a whole different world today. You know? And so, and we were, furnishing it and everything else. So we were trying to save every little nickel back then. So, but I'll never forget that. We still talk about that. Yeah. Remember how vexed we were about whether we were going to be able to afford a house that cost $38,000. So
there you go.
Crazy.
All right. Here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, October 6th, 2021.
I'm Michael Agello, and go Tampa Bay Rays.
I'm Russ Cohen, and Mike is just delirious.
Kevin Allen. I don't know what to say.
It's okay. And I'm Mac, and you're watching Hockey Buzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in the comings and goings in the hockey world. And a couple of things I wanted to start with here today, because we have a couple of little signings and things like that going on. But I really, the thing that kind of struck me, and I just lost it for a second here. Well, Galchenyuk has signed officially with Arizona, which is
which is bizarre, which is a little strange because Galchenyuk clearly wanted to go and play in Arizona. He played there previously. The Leafs offered him more money, and he took a PTO with Arizona and a 1-year deal at league minimum. So clearly,
remember I said he was going to probably sign there and take whatever they offered him, because it just seemed like that's where he wanted to go. I didn't say that I knew that for sure, but I just felt like he signed there because he went there because he knew he was going to get signed.
I feel like I watched a little of the game last night with him playing in it before this signing, and he definitely looks like he fits on that team nicely. Like game last night, by the way, I want to talk about the game for a split second because
he has a home in Arizona. That's why.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, the game so the if you look at the box score, this is like preseason is so crazy. Look at the box score. The Arizona Coyotes won 4-1. Right? They beat the LA Kings 4-1. Right. The Kings just dominated the game. It was the strangest thing. Like the Kings hit, no joke, and the announcers were having fun with it. 8 goalposts in this game. They hit 8. I've never seen a team hit 8 goalposts.
8's a lot.
8 in one game. The Kings hit 8 goalposts.
I've never seen that.
So it was 1-1. At 1-1, when it was 1-1 still, they had hit 5 posts. It's a crazy. It was just a crazy game. One of those weird things. Like Carter Hutton's in net for Arizona, and he just couldn't do anything right. Like he didn't seem to be able to stop the puck at all. But yet he only gave 1 goal, and it was just. I mean, I'm not trying to rip on Carter Hutton here, but I'm just saying it was really he just.
Come on.
All over the place. And no, I mean, and it's tough to watch, because it's obviously the home teams obviously always have the better chance, and this was in LA, so this was bizarre, in the preseason games. I did some other things from last night's games too, because I watched them all. I did the thing.
Let's talk a minute, okay?
But let's I do think we have to get to the Eichel thing. We have to touch that base with that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we're doing a little preseason thing wrap up, so it doesn't run into your report. Yeah. Let's mention the Flyers one for a minute for 2 reasons.
Yeah.
The first one is the quality of the Islander broadcast was the quality of like a high school video presentation. There was no video replay. We'll start with that. Everything that they showed you in between plays and in between periods was what they would show on the Jumbotron at the game. There was no new content.
No, was this an MSG broadcast?
No, this was just on their website.
Oh,
He
okay.
played out of Bridgeport, and it was worse than if they just had used the AHL channel, and they would have done better with that. But instead, they did their own little broadcast, and like even the Flyers had no coverage of it because there was like they wouldn't want to be using that feed; they'd be embarrassed. But anyhow, as far as the game goes, there's this prevailing word now out of Philly. Everybody's trying to put a happy face on what Martin Jones can't do in goal. And since you understand the position of goalie, I want to go over a few things. For one thing, the shaky glove hand. Anytime you can't glove the puck cleanly. Now, if you want to say the Chara shot's won because he's fast, fine. But he's no longer the hardest shot in the league. I think we all know that.
No.
But I think the other one was Josh Bailey. He couldn't glove that one either. And one of them almost trickled in. And it's like, tell me when a goalie can't glove the puck, what that means.
It means a lot. And the thing about it that's really interesting, and this went to Carter Hutton, and it's gone to Jones in both the games I've seen him play so far, and some other goalies are struggling. The one thing you can tell about a goalie when they're not on top of their game is where their glove and waffle are positioned.
Yeah.
Because like a good goalie, you'll see like all the time, like a guy coming down the breakaway, he shot it right into the glove, like he shoots it right into the glove because that glove was positioned in the right spot. I was taught to play goal, and that you have to if you have to have your glove here, your waffle here. You want to have them outside your body. They should be blocking your body. If they're in tight on your body, like what's happening with Jones and Hutton is like the glove is here, not here. The glove is here. So then you have to move like this to make a save instead of just moving up and down.
Mm-hmm.
That extra movement makes it much harder if everything's in tight. And you see it with Jones and Hutton very clearly. It really is frustrating because it does seem like one of those obvious things, and I'm sure that they work on this stuff all the time. But and when you get into a game and when guys get nervous and they fall back onto their kind of instincts because they're not confident, that's what happens. They get small and they move themselves in. Where Carter Hart this preseason has looked really good, and his glove has been out here, and he's made a lot of glove saves.
He has
that haven't even been where he hasn't even had to move his glove. That's positioning, right? So
then the Anders Lee goal that went 5-hole was the easiest goal Anders Lee will ever score in his life. Like that was just the way I just felt like Jones left 5-hole for him to score 2 goals at the same time if he wanted to. The third goal, I'll admit, I something distracted me. I missed it, and of course, I didn't get to see a replay of it. But some people complained about the third goal as well.
I didn't see it. I didn't see the third goal either. But
Mike had the thought though.
Yeah.
And I'll let you think about this while you're giving me the answer too. Mike had the thought. It seems like the media and fans are okay where if he gives up 3 goals in a game, that's now acceptable for the backup goalie of Martin Jones. And Mike might be right.
It might be acceptable, but it might not be the playoffs. Like that's the reality.
Right.
I mean, it'd have to be like you have to get a certain amount of points out of your backup. That's the NHL, right? And you cannot make it anymore. You can't make it in the playoffs with all the with how competitive it is. If your backup isn't at least close to 500, like your backup has to be at least in the 500 range, and that's assuming your starter is doing really really well. So if your starter's struggling a little bit, then your backup has to come up and pick it up completely. Yeah. So it's a tough spot to be in. I am really curious why we're not seeing a little bit more of Alex Lyon in the preseason. Like I honestly,
well, he's not on the Flyers anymore. He was on Carolina, and they just sent him down.
Okay. I see. I thought he still was on the team.
No.
Oh man, no. That's why. Then obviously, I apologize.
Yeah. Sandstrom would be the next guy, or Urson. It's probably Sandstrom.
And then I question why Alex Lyon is not on the Flyers anymore, because I really do believe that he was a goalie who had very much the capability of being a backup in the NHL, and he would have been the perfect backup for Carter Hart.
One thing that I know that you've advocated or that you've hoped over the last few years is that there would be a genuine rivalry between the two teams, Florida and Tampa Bay. Kev, I think the rivalry is on. After the playoff last year, where it was a pitched battle basically every game. Last night I normally don't put any stock in preseason games. It's like like the individual battles of players trying to establish or make a team. this was revenge for the playoffs because there were two, not bench clearing brawls, but line brawls early in the third and late in the third.
Yeah, they were good
Lewis
fights.
got into it. Corey Perry, Sam Bennett got into two fights. I think the rivalry is on now.
Yeah, no, it is, and I've said, and I really believe this, that this is really going to be a dogfight up at the top, and I'm so bullish on Florida. And
Me too.
Yesterday when I was doing my comparing the divisions, and I decided to look at the number one goalies at all the different teams and all the number one centers, number one defensemen, and the coaches. And when I got to Florida and was looking at their roster, like when you look what Zito has done with adding, Bennett, Reinhart, and then the guys they already had, Huberdeau, Barkov, their defense and their goaltending, like, everybody is, saying, oh, this is going to be hilarious, a $10 million backup. But if you push aside how much Bobrovsky is making, and I know that's difficult to do, but you push it aside and say to yourself, they've got Spencer Knight, who's the best young goalie around, and it's possible their backup's going to be two-time Vezina Trophy winner.
That's exactly it.
Like, all of a sudden you're looking at this team and going, man, they could be the new Tampa Bay Lightning.
They could.
They really could. They're a very, very impressive team, and I think the biggest problem you have with a team trying to get to that top tier is they don't have the same level of confidence. I think this Panther team actually does already have that confidence. So they play
a really fun game to watch. There were 10 major penalties in that third period, Mike. You're right. And it was just like, it was really fun. I mean, you don't see that very often. I mean, this is a preseason game, like you said, and Corey Perry, of course, is involved in a lot of it. And that always, when Corey Perry's out there, that's always going to make players more and more pissed off. There's everybody likes to be angry at more than they like to be angry at Corey Perry. So yeah, it was just a crazy, and you're right, Kevin. I mean, it's fun to watch. I do think that, and they're doing, the word on their street is like, Bobrovsky's our starter still. He's our starter. And, they're not putting the pressure on Knight yet. They're definitely going in with Bobrovsky's job to lose.
Yeah, and they should do that.
Which is good, but when you look at both goalies, we look at how much they make. Okay, they make like what, $11 million.
$11 million, yeah. And if you look
at the two of them, which is not horrendous, when you have their
other, that's bad.
It's terrible.
The average should be $8-9 million. Yeah,
right. Yeah, but it's not as bad as it could be. Considering it's $2 million too high. Yes, but it's not like. But everybody looks at Bobrovsky's contract as such a problem, which it is.
The key for Florida this year is, Mackenzie Weegar had a sort of coming of age type of year last year, played extremely well, whether that's, just smoke and mirrors or whether that's actually who he is.
He's been good for a while, though.
But it got to a higher level last year.
It did, for sure.
Whether Ekblad can get back to where he was before the injury that he had, and Anton Lundell, Russ, because apparently Barkov is taking Lundell under his wing. This is a guy who, by the end of the year, if they place him in the right place, they don't put too much pressure on him. He's a guy who could really help them as sort of a second, third line guy. Growing to a top line guy in a couple years.
Yeah, definitely put him on the third line. Let him work his way up. But he is already smart. I believe he's already can handle the pressure because he has been playing against men overseas. He scores goals. He wins faceoffs. He knows how to do the little things.
Right.
I think there'll be a little bit, like any other young player, a little bit of a curve at the beginning. Let him get through that while the team is really good here. And you're right, it can really pay off on the back nine.
Yeah, and as I think I mentioned yesterday when we talked about the Leafs briefly, they did end up signing Josh Hosang to an AHL contract, which I saw coming a mile away because then he wouldn't have to clear waivers, and it keeps the pressure off of him, and it rewards him for having a good training camp on a PTO. I think that's the right thing to do. If he has a good year in the American Hockey League, then they sign him to an NHL contract, and maybe he earns his way up to the NHL. So it could be a potential, good feel-good story.
Yeah,
they're going to be a lot of fun. Real quick, a couple quick things before we get into talking about why the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup today.
There is a thing out of Islanders camp. Was that one of them that you were
go ahead. Go for it. You can do
with Semyon Varlamov. All they're saying is They won't say what the injury is.
Yeah.
And all Trotz is basically saying is they still expect him there for the opener, but time's running out. And so it's like, I don't understand the report. Like, it's like, if he has an injury, say what the injury is. And if he doesn't, why are they making it sort of seem like it's up to him? Like, I don't understand what's going on here with Varlamov. Do you?
No, I don't. And I think that well, I'm not surprised that we don't know what's going on between.
Yeah, it's Lou. It's the Islanders.
And Barry Trotz and Lou are not going to be telling us
We
anything.
still don't know what the contract is for Parise and Chara, let alone
You're going to know that.
But I think that I do think that it's it's getting serious for sure. But they're in the rare position where they don't have to rush him back either. I mean, they really don't. I mean, there's really no
Rush
sense
him back from what?
Rushing back from what I agree, but if they're saying if put it this way, if Trotz is saying he thinks he's gonna be ready by the beginning of the season, this isn't that bad.
I mean, Trotz said this. Here's the Trotz quote: "We're really looking at the Carolina game. The window is getting a little short for Varley." Okay,
right.
Well, like what's wrong? If you're a fan, you have no idea what's going on. Zero.
Yeah, and you won't, but you do know that you've got one of the best goalies in the league anyway. So. I really think that Sorokin is not yet. We'll see. Sorokin is and I think that they're going to be. I think they're going to be fine. They're going to be absolutely fine. I like Kevin's article. Kevin did a really good article that's that I featured today in my spot on about the Metro Division. Where I liked your first line, Kevin, which is something like on the Metro Division. Did I say Patrick?
Yes.
Nice. There you go. There's my old school coming out. Yeah. Where you basically you come off right and say everyone thinks the Islanders are going to win the Stanley Cup, but maybe not. I like the beginning of your article.
Yeah, they got to first qualify for the playoffs.
Exactly.
I'll tell you the one thing that I went in doing that article thinking, okay, the Metropolitan's the tightest, toughest division, but I never really kind of that's just the eye test. Okay. Yeah. But when you break it down and, I discovered, maybe I knew this, but I never sort of brought it all together. Like, look at the coaching in that division. When you list the 8 coaches who are in that division, and then you think about their level of accomplishment and where they've gone, it's incredible. And then look at the defense that you have there. I mean, I got Polak rated as the 8th best number 1 defenseman. I'm not sure he's number 1, but he played the most minutes, so I gave him the number 1 deal. And, there's so many good defensemen in there in that division as well. But what I was really struck by is in that division, there's only one team, the Columbus Blue Jackets, that you can say, well, they're not very likely to make the playoffs. Right. Like all the other teams have a shot. Yep. And they're the only division where there is only one team that you can say, well, they're not likely to make it.
I mean, Central's that way too. I think Arizona is the only team that's not good that doesn't have a shot in that division.
No, Nashville doesn't have a shot.
You think Nashville? It's hard for me to count them out completely because
it is. But I've heard through the grapevine
that country song. That's what
that even the Predators are starting to believe.
Right. Well, you can't put them at the level of Arizona or Columbus. I mean, I don't think that they're.
I don't know about that.
That's hard to do because they still have.
I don't know. What are they got Roman Yossi. Yeah. Which he's still a really good player, and we think Saros is pretty good. We think that, but he's only had half a season, 3/4 of the season where he's really faced that pressure. So, as long as they still have Duchesne and Johansson, and they're counting on those guys,
albatrosses.
Yeah,
but I think the Atlantic Division has 2 teams that are not in the playoff mix in Detroit and Buffalo, but I think their 6 teams are better than any other top 6 in any other division.
I don't think the Senators can make the playoffs either.
Well, if Tkachuk sits out, which we talked about,
even if they have him in there, I don't.
They're a long shot even with him in. I agree.
Not in that group.
They're better, but they're not. They aren't up in that level.
And I love their young talent.
I love their talent. I do.
They're still fun to watch, but they're like I said, they're a lot more fun to watch with Tkachuk in there. That's for sure.
Couple things.
I just wanted to talk. I thought we would probably do this earlier. Because we've talked about him so much, but the Evander Kane news.
Yes, that was
that.
I know.
That's incredible. I mean, for those who may not have heard, but he's now being accused, or at least they're looking into whether or not he falsified his COVID test, his positive COVID test. And is he just trying to get out of the league? Is he trying real hard to invalidate his?
No, I just think
so.
He figured he could get away with it, is the thought, if that's really what he did. The interesting thing, Kev, is like in real life, somebody got caught for this traveling abroad and they got put in jail. So there is no jail for this for an NHL player. But to me, it's like if this happened and they prove it happened, it's probably a lifetime suspension because nobody wants to mess around with this. Oh, I disagree, Mike.
No,
I worried this was. I wouldn't be shocked if this.
He put the whole league
if there are
at risk.
players in the NHL who falsified things. It wouldn't be shocked at all.
If this is true, he put the whole league at risk.
I wouldn't be surprised.
If he gets, a lifetime suspension.
I wouldn't be surprised if he gets seriously fined for it. But I'm
fined.
Yeah,
I understand your frustration, Russ, but I'm with Mike on this. I don't know that you could ever get that by, if that would end up in arbitration and they would lose that.
And they're saying this is not going to be grounds for termination of his contract. So I mean that but you see, honestly, and I'm not going to go into all the particulars, but the politics of COVID when it comes to sports over the last few weeks has shown itself in some really bizarre ways. Like Cole Beasley, the Buffalo Bills wide receiver, who is vehemently anti-vax. 75,000 fans at the Caremark Stadium have to pass through either showing an Excelsior pass or the card that says double vax. He isn't vaccinated. He catches a pass and 75,000 fans boo their own player. Stuff like that. Stuff like Sage Steele from ESPN getting suspended, not only for some stupid other comments, but also because she had COVID and was railing against ESPN's vaccine mandate. So it's across the board how much COVID has really affected sort of the machinations of these leagues and these networks.
But then you can also turn the other side of it. 98% of NHLers are vaccinated, and there's a lot. I mean, we're going to have issues, and there's no question that I don't want to get into the vaccine talk. I promise.
Right.
But I think that because we talk too much about it here, but I do think that it's news. We have to talk about it when it's news for sure. And this is news, and it just is kind of crazy that, how did they find out about this first of all with Kane? Like what?
Maybe the wife tipped him off.
Well, it's either
if that's the case. Do we?
It's either that or for players. Okay, some teams are doing the shots for the players. Then they know that they've been vaccinated. If they've been vaccinated in other places, they have to provide, just like I have to provide at the border, proof of the card. And if they look at the card and it basically says it misspells COVID, which I've seen on some, how stupid can you?
That was how one person got caught. Yeah.
Right.
It's so easy to falsify those cards.
You think you're making $7 million a year? You could afford to get
that's why I really wonder about, but let's wait and see how this plays out. But I think that I do want to. There's two quick things I really wanted to talk about before we go to the Flyers. We're going to have to go fast. But Eichel, the Eichel situation. Although Drager came out today and said that his quote today was that that some teams are now getting more of the information about the medical stuff and all that stuff.
Yes,
I was told, and I wrote about this a week and a half ago, not saying that I was ahead of the, but I just think I don't know that this is actually suddenly big news.
I don't think it is, Zach. I think this is just a way of keeping him in the cycle.
Yeah, like
Hassan is just hoping someone bites at it, but I don't think they're gonna without him having.
No, because this was out there to teams, and I know I talked to two teams who were interested in him, and they knew all about this. Remember, I talked about this, right? That Brisson was doing that. This is what Brisson does, and I mentioned I had a whole thing about this is the kind of thing Pat Brisson makes sure happens. This is why you get him on board. This is because he can make that happen. He can mediate that stuff. But I do think that I do think that getting him in the cycle now is smart too, based on the other thing I want to discuss really quickly, which is Robin Lehner, right? So the fact that Robin Lehner came out yesterday and had a little press conference about everything that's going on. And after that press conference, I don't know about you guys, but I just was like, my respect grew more because
mine too. I people have the opposite opinion though. Flyers fans are still mad that they sort of got dragged into it a little bit, and he basically backed off on AV. Otherwise, I think what Leonard did was a good thing because if we all noticed, Tom Sestito came out literally the next day and said what he had been given.
Yeah,
and I think if the league looks into this, which I think they're going to now based on Robin Leonard, and same with the PA, I think they're going to find more stories. And so I think Leonard did the right thing here.
And that's what's important. And Kevin, I want your opinion on this, because we talk a lot of times about whether or not you believe in protests, like certain kinds of protests happening, like Black Lives Matter, or any kind of any protest out there that happens, right? Where people get mad at these protesters and stuff like that. But the reality is things finally happen. Like, and so Leonard, he did say that he had tried other avenues yesterday, which is one thing we questioned about. So suddenly he's talking to the NHL, he's talking to the NHLPA. He feels happy about where they're coming from. It does matter, like to make these stands, like to make these protests out there, to actually get out there, to get things done. Sometimes takes doing something like that, like what he did. And this is a perfect example of it. You agree, Kevin?
Completely. Yeah. Especially one side too. I mean, I did talk to a number of people within the hockey world who said they were kind of disappointed that if he hadn't at least tried to do it, privately, because, he puts his team, in the spotlight, and now it's we hear it all the time, distractions and that sort of thing. I don't know that I've ever bought that, but hockey players, I think, can play hockey and think about other things when they're not playing hockey. But especially yesterday when we learned that he had actually tried to do this and got nowhere. Yeah. I mean, this is why you have formal protests, because they do matter. And that's why we have laws in this country that are designed, although it didn't always work during the Donald Trump administration, to protect the whistleblower.
Right.
Because we need people to step forward and say, hey, look, something's not right here, and we need to address that. And Robin Leonard did that. And if the league and the PA does the proper investigation, and maybe it's just a single team or two teams, and then they can correct all that. And
there's no question that there are prescription issues in the NHL. We don't need Robin Leonard to tell us that. Like, that's something that all pro sports, you can't tell me that they aren't trying to rush players back. You can't tell me that they aren't giving them pain medication, because I've talked to players. There's some players who've got addicted to pain medications. There've been all kinds of things, and that's normal, right? So there's no question that what he's bringing up is real. Mm-hmm. And I told you before, I have a guy who is really close with Robin Leonard, who I've been talking to. I don't really know Robin Leonard at all. And if he watches the show, he probably doesn't like me very much. But because of my Marc Andre Fleury comments. But I think that the guy who I talked to about Robin Leonard, remember I told you before, who said he was really principled. Yes. I talked to him yesterday after this whole press conference, and he said, if you read between the lines in that press conference, the one thing I don't think anyone is seeing, which is he talks about his mental health issues quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And he said the way Leonard's health issues work is that if he has something that's bothering him, there's something that he thinks is wrong that's going on out there, and he doesn't address it, it drives his mental health stuff insane.
Yeah, I said that yesterday.
Right, and you were right about that. And you could really saw it when you listen to him talk. You really could hear that he kept coming back to it. Now I've got, basically he ends with, I've gotten this out. Now I got to focus on myself and make sure this is. Mm-hmm. It was really just a cleansing that he had to do. And you have to respect somebody for understanding themselves that well, and that that understanding what makes them tick that much. It really is something. I mean, to me,
I only know this from experience. I wasn't like guessing yesterday. I only said it because it's happened to me, and I know how it sort of works. I mean, and I think it's worse in sports in the sense that if somebody has mental illness, everybody wants to be quiet about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. They want to whisper about it. And there's always this sort of shame about it. Right. Then it started to get a little better in sports. At least some of it was getting talked about. But let's face it, it's still everybody, even on this show, I got trashed for not talking about Robin Leonard's mental illness. And again, I don't want to constantly say that and keep throwing that out there. We're all aware he's had some issues, but when you're working at something, you don't have to always say it every minute of every day.
It's not as bad as it was if you ever saw the movie North Dallas 40, where they're popping pills and shooting up like crazy to get on the field. It's not as bad as that, but it may be in certain instances still bad. So it's good that Leonard brought this to light.
I mean, you're right, Mike. But that's the steroid thing, was bad for a really long time too, and that got better.
Yeah.
And that was bad in the NHL. And I remember I never really personally saw it, but I know other reporters I talked to, and I don't know, Kevin, if you can vouch for this or not, who were around before, that said they used to see that like guys were breaking out really badly, and a lot of it were being on their backs and stuff like that. And we're saying, that might be tied to steroids. Like that, that time people were taking steroids very commonly, and it wasn't. Did you ever run into any of that, Kevin?
Yeah. I mean, I'm aware of it was going on. The story I heard yesterday, and I was talking with fellow reporters, and this never happened to me, but it happened to him. He was telling the story about how he had a tooth removed, and it was impacted, and there was a lot of problems, and he ended up getting the highest milligrams of Tylenol you could get.
Nice.
And he took it, just 2 of them, and then of course it got better, and he had like a big jar of these extra strength Tylenol.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his surgery with another reporter in a dressing room at a morning skate, and he said a player came up to him and said, "Do you want to sell those Tylenol?" See, I think that just sort of indicates where players are at. I mean, I don't think we pay homage to the everyday aches and pains that players go through, and they're looking for any measure of relief. And so I think it's real easy. But, and we don't think of this either, but I was told yesterday that one of the biggest issues is this idea of having difficulty sleeping, that after you play a game and then you have a beer or two and you're trying to get to sleep, you can't get to sleep.
You're all revved up.
Yep. Players are constantly talking to trainers about help me get something to help me sleep, because
it's been an issue for a while.
Yeah, it has been. And you're going into a situation where you're not going to sleep till 4 a.m. or 4:30, and then you're getting up to go to a morning skate, or you're getting up to go to a practice. And they a lot of them feel like they're sleep deprived. That's why they end up discussing.
And a lot of them nap a lot. A lot of them, but some people can't. Some people, it seems like with a person, they can either take a nap, or some people just can nap, and some people can't nap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Although it seems like all hockey players can take the 3-hour pregame.
Yeah, I'm not a good napper. I just feel like when I wake up, I'm groggier than ever.
Yeah, me too.
It's almost like not worth it for me to do anything anymore.
I'm a fantastic napper, but I sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night, so that's why. I mean, my wife is just astonished at how little I sleep, but I get most of my work done at night. That's when I work best. So that's just the way it goes. But anyway, all right, let's move on to the Flyers. Because everyone's going to say I'm a homer, and I was worried about writing this article the most because, and I haven't even put it out yet. That's why I put up Kevin's article this morning, because I'm like finishing up my article here myself here, because I don't have why the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup, and everyone's going to rip me apart for this one, but okay. This, like I said, I've been doing all 32 teams, so I can't be called a homer. All right. Anyway, this is an interesting team, and for many reasons, the one thing that the Flyers that I can honestly say has been the Claude Giroux era of the Philadelphia Flyers is tied together by one thing. It doesn't matter who's coaching him, what's going on, or what's happening. This is a team that comes out of every game horribly slowly. This is the worst starting team I've ever been around. Like that since Claude Giroux, there was a time I remember years ago, when the Flyers were like one of those teams who come out and score 2 goals in the first 5 minutes and jump on a team. That has not happened really since. I mean, and I'm not just blaming this on Claude Giroux. I'm just saying the Claude Giroux era of because Claude Giroux has scored a ton of points in that era, so you really can't blame it on him. But this is an issue that has never been fixed by any coach that's been here, and was not fixed last year nor the year before. And I do feel though that some of that has to do with the hesitance that the team has because they don't believe in their goaltending. And I think that when you don't believe in your goaltending, you tend to play a little bit more not to lose than play to win. And that's the issue that I've seen with Philly for a very long time now. I think that this team does believe in Carter Hart. And although he had a kind of an up and down season last year, and might have been, how he was handled, Lord knows, and how the coaching goes on this team, I've been very critical of it for, this particular group for a very long time, but they have their way of doing things. Old school, old Montreal school, I call it. So this is Carter Hart, right? And Carter Hart's going to be the key, as it always is when a team goes out there to win. And for the first time, Carter Hart now has a defense in front of him that he can be confident of. So a confident defense, but they made some fantastic moves, picking up some fantastic players. I don't think I realized, how good Keith Yandel was necessarily until this.
Oh wait, don't. I don't know. I would be hesitant on that.
I'm gonna. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But as what I've seen so far with Keith Yandel, I've been incredibly impressed, and I know he's up and down because I followed him. But how well he fits with this team is really interesting. He fits very well with this team. Ryan Ellis has had an okay preseason, but not the greatest. But I do think a lot of that has to do with learning how to play with Provorov, which is an interesting. But Ellis is picking it up, and as he picks it up, the middle pairing of Sanheim and Ristolainen is just fun to watch. It's a really Ristolainen hits everything that moves. Sanheim is a very smart player with the puck, and Sanheim has a lot more offensive upside and the more confident he gets, the more he shows it. So it's not just in passing, but scoring. Sanheim's a good goal scorer himself. So, Justin Braun kind of bears out that 6. There's an interesting thing that happened this year. One of the interesting twists with the Flyers is this Kevin Hayes injury, which is definitely going to hurt them in some ways. Although I will say that Kevin Hayes was invisible for 80% of last season. So really, if you take away the first month of last season, Kevin Hayes was nothing. To me, this is going to give Morgan Frost a chance to play, and that's what we're seeing. And I am just incredibly impressed with what I've seen from Morgan Frost this year, and I was last year before he got hurt. I felt like last year when I sat with Russ, in an empty building, and I yelled to him across.
Hold hands because we were too far apart.
Yes, but for 6 feet away, I'm like, Morgan Frost will never not be on the Flyers again. I really said that to him because watching the way he played out there last year before he got hurt, I'm like, that he's up for good. He's that good. He can play. He reminds me a lot of a young Claude Giroux. Honestly, is what he reminds me of. He plays a lot like Giroux. He just moves like Giroux. He's very, very smart. Great on the power play. I really like what I've seen from him so far. And I think they made another sneaky little move with Cam Atkinson because he is one of those guys who plays on emotion. And if he can get on a roll, Atkinson can be something.
I don't think it was a little move. I mean, that was a significant move.
Well, it was
getting Voracek's contract
at
off
the time. Getting rid of Voracek was more important than getting Cam Atkinson to the Flyers. But getting Cam Atkinson was a really good move. They're going to be better penalty killing this year for sure. And that's a big thing. Last year they were 30th. That's one of the reasons that their defense. That's one of the reasons they went out and got Nate Thompson, who I'm not a huge fan of, but he's a good penalty killer for sure. Morgan Frost is also a very good penalty killer. And Derek Brassard, who is one of these guys that I'd like to see some of the younger guys up right now, and not Derek Brassard in the lineup, but I'm okay with Brassard in the lineup too. And that this is all knowing that, they've got Cam Yorks in the background, and they've got Cam York and some other good young players in the background waiting to come up, and they're going to have time to let them play in the minors. I think why I believe the Flyers will win the Stanley Cup is I believe that they've been better than they should. They've been better. At times they've been really better than you think they are over the last 3 years, and at times they've been way worse. They're the strangest team to watch because when they're at their best and clicking, you really do see them as a contender, even the last 3 years. But when they're not, they fall off the map. I think they finally have a defense. Defense makes Carter Hart confident. Carter Hart makes the offense confident, and that all comes together. And I think that's why I think they're going to win the Stanley Cup. And I will go to Kevin to explain to me why they won't, or agree with me completely, which I'm sure he will.
Well, I won't agree with you completely. I like the Flyers. Rarely in NHL history has the general manager been able to alter his defense the way that Chuck Fletcher did. And I was critical of Chuck Fletcher, but the moves he made to do that. And, Keith Yandel's a flawed player, but he has an ability to help a team. And one of the best stories I have about that is I was embedded with the Olympic team when they were picking their roster, and I got to see how the sausage was made. And it came down to whether or not Keith Yandel was going to be on that team. And Dean Lombardi was asked to prepare a brief, much like a lawyer, and to defend Keith Yandel. And when he was done and he talked about all the stuff that Yandel could do, and I'm talking about really into the minutia of playing defense, when it was done, Brian Burke said, if I'm ever charged with murder, Dean, I want you to represent me in a court of law. Because Lombardi, who knew Yandel well and had watched a lot of his games, really got into it, and he explained why Yandle can help your team, even though, he's not the greatest defensive player in the world. And, some of the things he does well, you have to watch him every game in order to really sort of appreciate. And I think he is going to make that team better because he's just a superb transition defenseman.
Yeah.
He can really move the puck out of the zone. And I think once Ryan Ellis figures out Provorov, he's going to do for him what he did for Roman Josi. And I just think Ristolainen, I said for a long time, it was a mistake for the Buffalo Sabres for the last 2 or 3 years to consider trading him. They should have worked real hard to try to convince him to stay, because I thought he was underrated. And I think he's just always been part of a poor team. And I think that sort of drags you down. I think it drags your game down as well. But what I really liked about the Flyers up front is just, you were talking about Frost and Farabee are guys that are going to be better, and they're getting better. Yeah. And I think that's key for them as well. And I still believe in Carter Hart. I want to look at last season not as an indication that he's not the goalie that we thought he could be, but just things went wrong. They snowballed. He didn't know how to dig himself out because he's still a young goalie. And it just got worse. And I thought Vigneault handled that situation as poorly as it could be handled. It was too public. We saw too much of the friction between him and Carter Hart, and we should never see that.
No.
All that said, I said before, I think they have a chance to win division. I still believe that. They might not, because I'm not even sure they're going to make the playoffs yet. You know how I feel.
This division is
true. That is how that division's going to go.
It just works. That's why I wrote the way I did, that the Islanders have a chance to win the cup if they can make the playoffs in their division. So
you bring up a really good point that I want to accentuate. Then go to Mike and Russell here. But my thinking is, this is the thing about the Flyers. Like I said, the beginnings of games have been terrible, and the ends of games have been terrible too. And I should bring that into. There's very few teams
that have been great.
No, but there are very few teams that have been scored on more when the other team has their goalie out than the Flyers. The Flyers have they locking things down, and that's where the defense is going to help. Obviously, locking things down, but it just was not there. They could not lock things down. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, and I'll yield to Russ's expertise when it comes to the Flyers, because he covers them on a day-to-day basis. But just, sort of from the outside perspective, I love what Fletcher did. The ability, I mean, I would have thought it would be near impossible to get 2 right-hand shot top 4 defensemen in one off season, and he did it without really destroying his club. I think their top 4 on the blue line is really good. I agree with what Kevin has said, that, Yandle, he's going to be on the bottom pairing, so you can limit his defensive liability. So you can have him, be a power play quarterback and sort of, just play on your bottom pairing. Then I think he can help you a lot. I'm skeptical of the goaltending. I think Carter Hart's got a lot of potential, but I go back to what I talked about 2 or 3 years ago. He was rushed. I think last year you saw what happened because he was rushed. I know the team in front of him carries a burden there, but I still don't know whether he can be the goalie that everybody thought he was going to be before being rushed. And I think that has an effect on players throughout their career. If he recovers, then he could be one of the top goaltenders in the NHL. And the other area of concern that I have is up the middle. Couturier is great. I don't know whether Kevin Hayes, I know he had a great first year and a okay second year, or sort of so second year, but I don't know. I don't know about their strength up the middle. Giroux, if they have to shift him up the middle, is not a center anymore. Maybe Morgan Frost needs time in Lehigh Valley. I don't think they're particularly strong up the middle, whereas there are other teams in their division who I think are much stronger. So that's why they're not winning the Stanley Cup. I think they'll make the playoffs, but I'm skeptical of how far they can go.
Okay. So a few things. Right now, Carhart looks solid. I need to see regular season, can he win road games? That's what I need to see. And
for sure.
That's when I'll know if he's fully back. But right now, from what I've seen, sure, looks good. I understand everybody wants to point out the positive in Yandle, because there's positives. He skates well. He's great on the power play. They like the fact that he says thank you to the goalie is great. That's all great. What got him traded from all these other teams was the fact that he would turn over the puck in his own end and then drag somebody down for a penalty at bad times. The more you play Keith Yandle, the higher the penalties. You can go look at his stats. He had as many as 68, back in his heyday when he's getting 50, 55 points a year. And last year was down to 38, but still 38 in his 50-something games isn't great. When you have, when you're a guy there that's a puck carrier that you're going to trust. So there's a high and a low with Yandle with that, and that's where some of the other stuff comes in. As far as the offense, I do think Frost can make it, and I've liked what I've seen out of Frost. And maybe Konechny woke up last game because I didn't like 2 games ago. I didn't like what I saw before then. I thought he was not right. So maybe that was something he can make a positive out of. I still think, and look, JVR looks faster, maybe the fastest I've ever seen him in his career. Which all of that is good, but there's a few things that we've seen in these games, and that is the Flyers' lack of offense when it counts, and that could ultimately cost them during this year because the defense is better. I think Ellis is doing well with Provorov. I think he's showing people he has a physical side because they didn't realize he had a physical side because they just assumed him being a smaller defenseman. He didn't do that, and his backward skating is maybe some of the best in the league for any defenseman with him getting back. So all of that's fine. His shot's great, and everybody could see that his shot's better than Yandle's, but Yandle's going to be the power play guy for now, and I get it. That doesn't mean it'll be that way forever, and I think that'll be the other thing that really can unlock the worth for Ellis. But as far as everything else goes on this team, I still don't see an ability for them to score on a daily basis. If you're telling me, because I think – when Martin Jones plays, they're going to need to score 4 goals to win. There'll be some games where they maybe win 3-2, but they're going to have to score 4 goals to win those games.
Yeah.
Can you win 20 games? Like that's going to be a factor. And then the other factor is, are they going to be able to score in the clutch? Because right now, we don't see a lot of that. Heck, these games have been low scoring. It's not like we could say, Boston had 7 goals one game. The Flyers haven't had 7 goals in 3 games.
No, and it is really tough.
Shut out, even though it was not their real team. It was the young guys, but still.
Yeah, no, it's tough because I think that when you have, if I was the coach right now, I would really want to get my 6 defensemen going with my 4. Like it's like you have your quarterbacks and your receivers aren't playing together all the time right now, and it's like they got to get used to each other. Like Ryan Ellis season. No,
just to answer the chat room. Sorry, I think Farabee will lead the team in goals. It's a positive for Farabee, but it's a negative for the team because they have so many other guys that should be scoring 30 goals for them, but I think he's the only one or one of the only ones that's going to score 30, 35 goals.
It's hard to say. I mean, it's Giroux could bounce back with a big goal scoring year still. I mean, watching he's on a contract year, right? And also the fact is that Giroux has looked very good in the preseason as well.
He's looked good, yeah.
And he, his one-timer, he did a one-time goal the other night that was like the Ovechkin power play goal that he scored. That was something. I haven't seen Giroux take that one-timer in a couple of years.
It was a good shot. That was a good goal.
What I mean? A couple of years. So the interesting thing I think about the defense that I also wanted to add is that their average age last year when they started the season, the average age for the defense was 24.2. Their average age this year is 28.6. That's a lot of experience that they get, and having experience back there. That's where I think Hart. That's why I always thought a young goalie like Hart playing with a young, inexperienced defense was a bit of a tough. Was a lot.
What do you think about just scoring goals? Scoring goals to win games.
Yeah, they have players who obviously can score goals. Konechny had a terrible year last year. He can score goals. He's shown it before. I think the offense is. I think they have enough offense there. I want to see the defense connect with them. The connection between the defense and the offense is what's going to change whether the Flyers can score or not. For me, that because this is a team that they need those passes. They need the quarterbacks to hit the receivers. They need that, and they haven't had that for a couple of years. So if they get that, they've got some great ones. I mean, Ellis is Ellis and Yandle. These are great things. I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about Yandle and Cam York. Yandle is a lot like York is learning a lot from Keith Yandle in a lot of ways. That they play a similar style. Cam York's coming up eventually.
I don't know. He had a really bad game yesterday. He might need a full season.
I think they've given themselves the ability to do that, which is really something.
Yes, I would not call him up unless I had to.
Because last year they had to.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they brought him up to see what he was about, but they really
Right.
did have. If that season had gone on for more than 50 games or whatever, Cam York would have been in the line of the last 30. I mean, they needed him.
I don't. He doesn't have enough battle in
Yeah.
the corners yet. He still loses the puck there. He's not ready. He's not ready.
All right. So what I've been doing with you guys is the percentage. I want to hear. I started doing this the other day, and I think it's fun. So I want to get the percentage you guys each think, the percentage of this team not making the playoffs, and the percentage of this team winning the Stanley Cup. Those are two there's an interesting thing. So, where you think that is, percentage wise of them not making the playoffs?
Not making the playoffs, I'll say it's a tough division, so I'll say 20. And
Okay.
winning the Stanley Cup, 5.
5. Okay. Russ?
Not making the playoffs, I'm going to go 35. Winning the Stanley Cup, 2%.
Okay. Kevin?
I'm going to go 30 for not making the playoffs. And I'm going to agree with Russ. I'm going to say, I'll go 4%. I'll split the
4%.
difference.
Okay, there you go. And if I did not believe the Flyers were going to win the Stanley Cup, my opinion would be that of not making the playoffs, 15. I think they're good enough to make the playoffs. 15. Winning the Stanley Cup, 6. Somewhere in there, 6 or 7. I think they're a little bit better than you guys are, but than you guys think they are. But I don't. Obviously, there's so much that we don't know. There's so much we don't know because we don't know how this team's going to play together. It's honestly, this preseason is a real challenge for Vigneault, and I hope that he gets a couple games in towards the end where he actually does put them all together and see how it works. Which is usually what teams will do, but they need that more than most teams. Like I know that Tampa cut a lot of players because he's in that boat right now. Like Cooper's like saying, I really want to see who I've got. I really want to see who I've got right now. Flyers need to do that, I think. I definitely think that would be good. But yeah, I think this division is insane. Let's talk a little bit more about that, Kevin, with your article, because your article in the little that we have left here. How do you see this playing out? Like it's so close.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah, it really is kind of fascinating, and we always pay lip service to the idea of parity, but this is really what parity is. Like if you look at it, we've identified maybe 3, 4, 7 teams that we think have no chance of making the playoffs, so therefore have no chance of winning the cup. But and I thought it was fascinating. To develop, I also wanted to give readers an indication of how many teams were in the top 10 from each division, and the Atlantic has the most of them. But you would guess that because they have, Toronto, and they have the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers, and they have the Boston Bruins. So they're kind of top heavy, but no one else has 3 teams near the bottom that you can sort of feed on as well. So, but what I really enjoyed was coming up with the number 1 defenseman and everything on every team because I didn't spend a lot of time ranking the defensemen, but I looked at it and just kind of took a quick overview on it. But it is kind of fun to see like where you fit, and in some divisions like I think Drew Doughty I had in the Pacific. Well, I have him down now as the 4 or 5 best defenseman in that league, where 5-6 years ago he would have been number 1. So it is kind of interesting. But I think that Metropolitan, I think there's going to be one surprise, like somebody that we think that should make it is going to not make it.
There's no question about that.
And so is that the Flyers? Is that the Islanders? Is that the Capitals? Like I've been saying all summer, that I think the Penguins are vulnerable, but what if they do make it? That's one other team that we have to.
If they make it, that's going to topple a lot of.
It does. So but I think their issue.
You can't dismiss the Devils getting Dougie Hamilton. And what I said the other day, Kev, on New York radio is now that Dougie Hamilton is in New Jersey, and I think Subban has taken it seriously again in the offseason, he looks better because there's no pressure on PK Subban anymore. Yeah,
no, that's right. And some of these teams actually have 2 defensemen that are premium players.
I was wondering that when I read this, that there would be teams that would have their second defenseman would finish ahead of some of the other guys.
For sure. Or Draisaitl would have been,
Yeah.
along with Connor McDavid in that as well. But I didn't do that. But it's interesting, like when you're rating defensemen in the Metropolitan, like as good as Hamilton is, and I think he's gotten better and better. And I actually thought, you really found a place that he fit well, and the coaching staff really appreciated him in Carolina. I don't know why he left, to be honest. But he can't crack the top 5 in that division.
Yeah.
Because they got the Norris Trophy winner. They've got John Carlson in that division. We've got the veteran Chris Letang. I can't put him ahead of Chris Letang because of the experience factor.
Right.
Letang, when you watch him, you think, well, he's gotten old and everything, but he's still a feisty, competitive.
And he still skates the puck out of trouble.
And he can skate the puck out of trouble.
Yeah.
So, he's not ahead of him. And I'm trying to think who else we have in that division that, so Carlson, and I don't have him ahead of Provorov.
Right.
So,
Right.
That's, it's hard, even Hamilton bringing him in.
Well,
and that
Adam
was
Fox too. Adam Fox, and
Adam Fox,
Adam Fox, yeah.
Norris Trophy, but that was a great get by the Devils. I mean, a great get.
Yeah, it was.
So,
and they overpaid for him, but they had to, and they had the money to do it, so it really didn't matter.
It makes a big difference because now Ty Smith doesn't have pressure on him. They could have a decent top 4, like a really decent top 4, and that's good for them. They need that.
It was interesting when you did this. So there were some people who wanted to hear more about how you felt like I've gotten a couple of people. Well, we need. How does he rank the Metro Division? Because you ranked some of the other ones. You ranked some of the other divisions. You actually, I don't know if they were your predictions, but you did them in the Central Division, and you didn't do that for the.
I must have not pulled them over then.
Metro. It's interesting because you have because that was the only one you didn't actually put them in order for the teams themselves.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I did. I wonder if I just didn't pull them over.
Or maybe we messed it up in the transfer. I'll check it out. But yeah, I'll see that. But anyway, it's really I love it. I love this concept of going for the number one center, number one defense, and number one.
It was a fun one to do. I mean, I really got into it. I thought, I don't think I've ever seen that.
No, I've never seen it either.
Maybe someone else has done it, but I've never done it before. And I've covered the league 35 years. I've never done it from, okay, let's look at everybody's number one. I'm sure GMs do that.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sure they do too. I mean, and it tends to be the teams that win, win everything have guys that are right at the top of this list, on all of them.
Well, plus it is in some, it was difficult to know who their number one was. Like, right. I don't know. Can you tell me who the Islanders, with any certainty, who the Islanders' number one defenseman is?
No, I would have gone with Ryan Pulock like you did, but you're right. I mean,
I'd say Pulock.
I was going to put him there, but he didn't play as many minutes as him. And I thought, well, if you're not playing as many minutes,
Pulock plays the power play, which tips it over. But
a power play is a big part of
true.
So
I mean, I think Slavin is one of the top 5 defensemen in the Metro, and
I think I had him 3.
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah,
2, maybe 2. Yeah, I might have had him 2. I'm looking at 2. Yeah, that was. Yeah, you had him 2 in the Metro. Yeah.
I mean, he's a great defenseman. No doubt about it. So but that was fun. That was a fun deal, and it's like one of those things that you write it not to create controversy, but to have people thinking. And I'm sure a lot of people read that and thought, "Wow, that's interesting." Look at these, guys. And I think the thing that struck me the most, like I said, was the quality of coaches in the Metropolitan. Like, we know they have good coaches, but you don't look all the way across. Like even Lindy Ruff has been to the finals. You know what I mean? Like, and he's done some good things.
Well, I mean, look at the quality of the coaches in the Atlantic. You've got 5 Stanley Cups with Quenneville and John Cooper.
Yeah, but that's good at the top in the Atlantic, but it's not all the way through. In the Metro, it's all the way through. Like there are some guys down at the bottom who are pretty effective coaches. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. This is you got it. If you haven't seen the article, definitely check it out. It's going to be up all day today in my spot. And I'll be putting my Flyers thoughts up tomorrow or late tonight. But yeah, it's really fun, and definitely one of those things that will be fun to look back on too as the season goes along.
Yeah, for sure.
See how this plays out. All right, it's all the time we have for today, folks.
I have to go get a coffee table.
Yeah, go get your coffee table, Mike.
Yeah.
Let us know how that goes.
I'm supporting you, brother, on that one.
You got your dolly.
Yeah.
You have some bungee cords.
Yeah.
No, I have no bungee cords.
I'd get some bungee cords.
I'd get some bungee cords too.
They're they're your best friend when you're moving something with a dolly. Trust me, for moving a lot of arcade machines that I have in my time. And yeah, by the way, who's ever mentioned in the chat room, all my arcade machines work here. Yes, they do. I've got 27 arcade machines here. It's just my stupid hobby. But yeah, they do work. But I'm moving them. Yeah, I can tell you, dollies and without bungee cords, it would kill myself.
Are you down on? Yeah, you used to have more than that, right?
Yeah, we had a couple more. We did. We gave a couple. I gave a couple away to some people who there was a place near here that like asked me if I had anything extra because they needed something, and then 2 of them don't work. So I'm not counting them right now, because the 2 that don't work, my Pac-Man doesn't work, which is very sad. And I'm currently talking. It's funny. Just as a side, there's a place that opened up about 3 miles from me that is an 80s arcade. Basically, is what they did. And when this opened up, I'm like, holy cow, that's crazy. Because I collect 80s arcade games, like when they opened up, I went over there and they had like a lot of the games I don't have, but don't have a lot of the games I do have. So I was talking to the guy. I'm like, listen, maybe it's time that I move my stuff over here and like, see what these do something with these games, because it would be kind of fun to see.
Yeah.
He doesn't have some graphics. There you go. Fantastic.
I like it.
All right.
All right.
Folks, remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow. See you then.